Good afternoon on this International Holocaust Memorial Day, when we remember the worst atrocities ever committed against man and woman, against mankind. And not only do we remember it, but we think about how to make sure that when we say never again, we mean never again, and we act in prevention to make sure that it never happens again. And it's especially more meaningful now with the rise of anti-Semitism all over the world, and here in America, as we saw in Texas, as we saw in Boston this summer, as we saw yesterday in London, a terrible story about two observant men being beaten just because they were Jewish. How do we make sure, Asher, how do we make sure that Holocaust Memorial Day is not just about remembering, but about making sure that something like this never happens again? You know, this week we've been hearing a lot in the media in the last few weeks about the crisis on the border between Russia and Ukraine, and that Russia has amassed 10,000 soldiers on the border with Ukraine, and the world and NATO and all the world countries are worried that Russia might invade Ukraine, which will lead to terrible devastation. But something else that's very interesting is that's come out in the last few days, that Israel has a plan that they've been working on to rescue the Jews from Ukraine in case there is an invasion. Now, you all know that there's the law of return, which allows any single Jew anywhere in the world to be able to come and return to Israel as their right, inherent right, as their land. And there are 75,000 Jews in Ukraine who have this title, who would be allowed to immigrate to Israel because they are Jewish. And Israel's working on a rescue plan in case, heaven forbid, there's an invasion and these people's lives are in danger, that they will be airlifted to Israel, as Israel did with the Ugandan Jews, and Israel did so many other times, in order to rescue Jews, the Yemenite Jews who were in danger. And Israel doesn't just have such a plan for the Jews in Ukraine, but many, many countries where Israel feels that the Jews are vulnerable, Israel makes sure to have a plan to make sure, in case they're needed, to be able to rescue these Jews from crisis and bring them to the Holy Land to be safe. And that's what Holocaust International Day really means. It's about never again. But never again is only through prevention, through working to make sure that we don't get to such a crisis, to such a situation. You know, in this week's Torah portion, the beginning verse says, these are the laws you shall place in front of them. And all the rabbis ask, what does it mean, you should place in front of them? What does in front of them mean? And there's many interpretations, but one of the interpretations, very beautifully, is given that God wanted the rabbis have a responsibility to teach the Jewish people the laws, to make sure that they know what they're not allowed to do, to prevent them from having to fail and do something that's wrong. Don't wait till afterwards, but it's called preventive medicine. That instead of waiting till someone gets sick, till someone does something wrong, the Torah says we have an obligation as rabbis to make sure that there's preventive medicine, that we put the laws in front of them, that we teach them about the do's and don'ts, so they make sure to never do what's wrong and never come to that. As Benjamin Franklin famously said, an ounce of preventive medicine is better than a pound of cure. Because ultimately, if you're able to stop someone from sinning, from making a mistake, it's much better than after they've done it. They say the story about Chelm, the city of Chelm, of fools, that they had this very steep mountain, and people would fall down from the mountain and constantly get injured. And they had a meeting between all the wise people of Chelm. What do we do? And they came up with the decision that they're going to make a hospital on the bottom of the mountain. And of course the message is that instead of making a hospital on the bottom of the mountain, they should make a fence on top of the mountain so people should not fall off. And that's the story, Asher. Tassim l'fneim, place it in front of them. Teach them before to prevent them from making the mistakes they shouldn't make. As we teach our children, as we nurture them, the do's and don'ts. So when they get out in life and get out to the world, they should do what's right. And that's what we do when we commemorate Holocaust International Memorial Day. To teach the world and teach ourselves as Israel's doing now with Ukraine? How do we make sure to prevent a catastrophe from ever happening again to the Jewish people or to any of God's children in this world? It's just like the snowstorm. Everyone's talking for a week about a blizzard that might be coming. It's not coming till Friday night or till Saturday, but we're preventing before to be ready that when it comes, if it comes, that we should be safe. That's why we send the plows out the day before, and they salt it, and they prepare the roads, and they get ready, because preventive medicine is the best medicine. May Hashem give us that there should never be a war, not with Ukraine and Russia, and never be any crisis. But the way to make sure is to prevent it before a crisis happens. God bless you, and have a great day.